When I covered Spectre Animation's FNaF VHS series, I'll admit, the reception was way more than I had ever anticipated. It got me thinking about my other favorite FNaF VHS series, one I actually referenced several times during that video, Battington series. Now I'll admit, I would have covered Battington series by now, but I decided not to for one very specific reason. It's kind of been done to death. Everyone talks about how great they are, they do reaction videos and everything, but it occurred to me that doing it like I did Spectre's series, as a comprehensive analysis, I might actually be able to get a decent video out of it that you, the viewer, won't really be able to find elsewhere. So it came down to me having to decide between two of Battington's series, Harmony and Horror, or the FNaF VHS series. Between the two, I appreciate H&H for its story, interesting themes, and sheer length. This is easily the longest analog series I actively follow, but on the FNaF side, there's a lot of creativity as well. But I have to admit something. The hardest part about reviewing Battington is not reviewing Squimpus McGrimpus. Many of Battington's FNaF VHS videos are remakes of the original series created by Squimpus McGrimpus, and as such, it's hard for me to talk about them as a wholly original product. My solution was to simply link each of the original Squimpus tapes as well. I should also point out that there is a divergent point where Battington's videos stopped being remakes and became their own thing. Similarly, Squimpus' series also goes on, with some tapes not being remade at all. Maybe someday I'll also review Squimpus' series. It kind of is the grandfather of all these other series. There's no real easy way to get this started. Spectre series was 3 videos totaling roughly 50 minutes of content. Battington's series so far is 10 videos totaling around 32 minutes. Even though it's shorter, there's still a lot to dig through, so let's get started. Episode 1, Parts and Service, is probably the best introduction to this series anyone could ask for. When we begin, our camera guy is on the ground in the Parts and Service room, with Freddy asking through the door, "What you doing?" He creaks open the door and his heavy body jerks with the motion. He spots the camera guy and asks again, "What you doing?" He steps inside the room and you get a real sense of impending doom. He doesn't exactly look friendly in this moment, even if the question he asks sounds very sincere. I'll go into more depth about that later, but it's honestly the scariest part of this video to me. He asks, "Why are you hiding?" And our camera guy turns to his left, only to be met with Foxy's face inches from his own. We're introduced to the concept of the series through the characters' faces flashing on screen, and the phrase, "where fantasy and fun come to life." Oh god. So this intro does its job and does it well. It introduces you to the type of horror you can expect out of this series and the story it's about to tell. That kind of horror, by the way, is everything I could want out of a FNaF series. This video, as well as most of Battington's series, relies heavily on the dissonance between the situation and the dialogue. Freddy's sounds soft and huggable, but the situation is dangerous from the moment the tape begins. When people bring up the uncanny valley, the borderline between life and unlife that FNaF 1 excelled in pushing, this is an excellent example. Freddy is moving and talking, but there's nothing natural about it. It doesn't even really sound like he's talking. It just sounds like he's playing noises from a noise box, which he is. Episode 2 is Fazbear Entertainment Video Manual, and this is the first episode to be a remake of the Squimpus series. Our video begins with a text-to-speech voice welcoming us and explaining that this tape will teach us how to clean up and care for the animatronics, using Freddy as our example. Step 1, press the red button on the back below the neck. Before the next instruction, however, this happens.
Second, press the blue.
We return to a regular instruction tape and are told to push the blue button on the back of the head. We're told to remove the upper jaw carefully and then the lower jaw, showing Freddy's bare endo head. Snazzy, if risque. The next step is pressing down on both shoulders and remove both arms. With the final instruction, we need to lift the torso upwards and there's a huge sensor bar covering the chest. We can see something has begun pouring down the front of the animatronic. Something red. Behind this sensor bar is a child. The music is cut out. The text-to-speech tells us to climb inside and accept our death. Before the voice finishes though, the lights cut and gradually Freddy's face is revealed to us, and the tape ends. Wow. Now this is by far the video that is most similar to Squimpus's, so I'll keep things relatively brief. This video does a great job of luring you in. Nothing particularly spooky happens, even the brief flash of light isn't that unnerving, but when that torso is removed, well, censoring the gore is probably the scariest way this could have gone down. No matter what, your imagination is going to make this scene scarier, and it's done to tremendous effect. Episode 3 is Bonnie joint movement test and begins by showing us Bonnie malfunctioning on stage, unable to move while emitting a noise that resembles Golden Freddy's jumpscare. I mean, it is Golden Freddy's jumpscare noise, but by calling it that, I'd be implying a lot that I don't mean to. We're then introduced to Freddy Fazbear. Not an animatronic, no, but an employee in a mascot costume, similar to a mascot at Chuck E. Cheese. He welcomes us and tells us that we seem like a new recruit. This is another training video. I guess the text-to-speech gore video didn't work that well when it came to employee morale. But as Freddy has finished telling us that testing animatronic movement is as easy as 1, 2, 3, he disappears. We see the door in the back open up slowly and we cut to the next scene. I'm not sure if the implication is we went through that door or not, but Freddy starts instructing us on how to test Bonnie's movement using this sort of control panel. We start with the head, and turn to see Bonnie in a dark storage room with a light bearing down on him. His head moves fine, so we move on. We test the arms, and Bonnie gives us a wave. How nice. We test the legs next. Bonnie lifts and does his little ankle roll thing that we saw in Spectre's videos, and he does the same with the others. Freddy's voice begins to glitch, and he doesn't tell us what we're gonna test. The button for the ears is pressed, but when we cut back to Bonnie, they don't move at all. He's not moving. We test the eyes, and the same thing. No movement. And then suddenly, the light flickers and goes off. A carnival tune begins, and we start seeing flashes from the flash beacon from Sister Location. It's the same sound effect, and same bluish light. Bonnie is completely gone. After a couple flashes, there's no sign of him, until he teleports over to us, and we see him standing before us looking like Shadow Bonnie. End of tape. This tape is good, but I gotta be real, I think it's the weakest of the bunch, except for that beginning. I love seeing Bonnie on stage messing up while the others keep going. It really adds to that uncanny valley feeling that the first video showed would be the cornerstone of this series' horror. And that ending, although spooky, doesn't do it quite as good as the beginning, at least to me. But overall, still a really good video. Episode 4 is Sound Response Check. Okay. If you knew this series before clicking on this video, then you probably know it because of this episode. It's a horrific remake of one of the best FNAF videos ever, and in doing that, what it adds to this video makes it the absolute best version of it. But enough teasing, let's get right into it. We begin with a girl washing up in the bathroom. For some reason, she brought a camera. She hears a noise to her right and looks over to see Chica peering into the bathroom. We cut to the inside of a stall. The girl is hiding, while Chica stomps through the bathroom, calling out, "It's time to go home, baby bird." The girl calls for her mother, which alerts Chica, who snaps her attention to the stall the girl is hiding in. Chica tells her it's time to go home, while her voice box breaks a little bit. She laughs and cups her hand around the stall door. "Take me home with you." The little girl is frightened, in tears saying, "No, Chica." Chica peers into the stall, calling her baby bird. The girl says that Chica is scaring her, but it's no use. A single laugh plays on repeat as the stall door swings open. Chica reaches in, and we cut to the animatronic's eyes rolling back up into her head while the girl screams. We cut to static. None of this was in the original video, and there's an element to it that I'll have to call back to later. But for now, let's get into the meat of the episode. It seems Chica's up for repair after an unfortunate incident. We hear someone explain mic sensors have been replaced in her head on the left and right. I thought it was Freddy's voice from episode 3, which it very well may be, but I think it's just supposed to be a technician working on her. He explains that these new ones are better for performances and won't shut down as easily as the older ones, which blew due to a loud noise. Wonder what that could have been. The technician says he'll upgrade the others later and only needs to use the sound response manual to make sure they work for now. We see the sound response test begin to load and instructions flash on screen. I should mention at this point, this video is best watched in stereo. I don't know if it's going to register as stereo when I record it with OBS, but just watch the original video. Our first audio plays, a series of beeps with the manual saying that if the microphones are working correctly, Chica should be looking left. She isn't. Just before we get to the next one, we see a silhouetted image of a girl flash on screen. The instructions read that if Chica hasn't responded correctly, make sure there are no children present. They will react to the sounds of children. The audio plays again, and again says Chica should be looking to the left. She hasn't moved at all. The tape moves on to testing sound on Chica's right side. At this point, it's almost comedic that she hasn't moved, but she hasn't. This next test has audio on both sides, Chica's left and right, and again the image of a girl flashes on screen, this time inside the outline of Chica. The text says if Chica has responded correctly, it's been cut off, and this time she has moved. She's looking into the camera, staring. Audio will play in 3 seconds again, and we fade in to see a black and white still of the location with a rabbit head poking out of a doorway. There seems to be the sound of toys and a musical tune. The rabbit fades and we see the girl's silhouette from earlier fade in. We see the same rabbit head down a long hallway. The girl's silhouette following him. We see yellow text at the bottom which reads, "This music makes me feel better. It makes me think about birds. I like birds. They are pretty." The girl gets further down the dark hall. One time, I saw a bird sleeping in the snow. That's what bad dreams are about. We come to another shot of the rabbit waiting in a dark room. The text continues on. "I feel like I'm sleeping in the snow, and I can't get up. It's too cold for me to do that." The girl follows the rabbit further into the room. The text goes on. "Things don't breathe when they sleep in the snow." As the door behind the silhouette shuts, the text reads, "I can't breathe." We cut to black, and then back to the Chica animatronic, still staring at the camera. We see the face of the animatronic loosen and begin to fall. When it falls, a girl's face appears underneath, and we cut to black. End of tape 4. And what a tape it is. This tape really has it all. It has that really scary beginning, which makes you squirm in your seat, and that sad buildup. You know the girl shouldn't follow that rabbit, but when it happens, it becomes clear. That element I mentioned earlier, when you watch the beginning of the video, as the stall door opens up, you can see 2 bright yellow ears sticking up behind it. William Afton was right there. Chica didn't just randomly kill a child, she killed it under Afton's control, and that's the child that now possesses her in the latter half of the video. At least, that's what I think. It doesn't line up exactly, since we see in the same video, the spirit was lured to the back room, which is where all of Afton's victims are supposed to be killed. And we know that this beginning scene happens before the rest of the video, since this girl's screams are what blew the microphones in her ears that meant she needed them replaced. It's tough, but that's episode 4. Episode 5 is a pretty short one, which I'm grateful for. You know, tape 4 is under 5 minutes long, but it's so damn dense I could go on and on about it. Tape 5 on the other is only 33 seconds, which is great because the next video is almost 9 minutes. Well, fuck me, huh? Episode 5, Give Life, is our long-awaited intro to the puppet. It's also the only one of these videos to be displayed in such a weird aspect ratio because it's a YouTube short. Oh well, I guess. We see a gift box while a carnival tune drones on and the puppet rises over it. We hear a low rumbling roar as it reaches for the lid of the box with its long tentacle-like arms. It lifts the lid and, blink and you miss it, it's Golden Freddy. How the hell are you, buddy? I don't have much to say about this video, only that the puppet design is sick as hell and it shouldn't have been a YouTube short. Moving on. Episode 6, Pirate Cove Pre-Show, is another one of the more famous episodes of this series, and for good reason. This episode shows Foxy and the rest announcing that the next show begins in
just about 10 minutes! Wait, 10 minutes? That's right, 10 minutes!
First off, before we even get to any spooky stuff, we have the most absolutely over-enthusiastic performance for this character ever. I don't want to dunk on this actor though, whose deactivated Instagram is Mr. Joshi. If anything, this performance makes this episode a standout and kinda makes you love Foxy, even though he looks like what happens when Chuck E. Cheese gets hooked on meth. So Foxy introduces himself to us, says we have a grand show in 10 minutes, and Freddy and the gang have to get ready. Everything's going alright by now. By the way, while I'm at it, Chica in this video is voiced by Lottie Guntank, who seems to be a fashion designer. Freddy and Bonnie are uncredited in this video, so I can only assume that this is Battington himself voicing the characters. And if I'm wrong, sorry actors. Regardless, this seems pretty normal, if silly. Chica preps her singing voice, Bonnie slips and makes some goofy ass sounds when he falls, and Foxy yells,
Hey! Will you landlubbers stop mucking around?
For the record, he said the word mucking, not the other thing. One interesting thing Foxy says here is that we have to make sure we're in time for the show. Not a moment before, and not a moment later. This actually parallels Ultimate Custom Night, where Funtime Foxy's mechanic is you have to witness his show at the correct hour on the hour. If he kills you, he says, show times are on the hour, not a minute before, and not a minute later. I just thought that was interesting. As the pre-show ends, we fade to black and cut to Pirates Cove being filmed. It seems like this is after the pre-show, but god damn. Foxy peeking out like that sends a chill up my spine every time. We then cut to Foxy's eyes and the flashing words go 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 on the screen, and then a room of 5 children. Hooray! Thank God spooky stuff hasn't happened yet, or will happen. And then, the pre-show starts again. Everything is the same as before, like exactly the same. So if you enjoyed it the first time, you'll love this encore. And if you didn't, get out, leave my house. After it ends a second time, we cut back to Pirate Cove again, and more of Foxy is peering out, looking even worse than before. shit. And then his mouth opens. We cut to the West Hall from FNAF 1. The phrase go 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 once again, lighting the screen up, and Foxy runs. Through flashes of Foxy's face, we cut to black again, and we're back with the children. Except this time, there's only 4. One of them is gone. We get another hooray, and the pre-show starts again. And this time, something's different. When Freddy asks Bonnie to mop the stage, well, he's not moving. He's stained with blood, a huge sensor bar over his chest like in the second episode, and worst of all, human eyes pouring out of his own eye sockets. The same as the eyes of the night guard when you game over in FNAF 1. A child's been stuffed inside of him. Freddy ignores this and goes on. Foxy once again asks for people to stop f***ing around and gives us the rest of the pre-show. Except this time at the end, he disappears from the stage. We immediately cut to the kids' room once again, only 3 remaining. The pre-show starts again with more distorted audio, and everything else seems the same. But when we cut to Freddy, he's been stuffed as well, with more blood and another sensor bar. And Chica doesn't make it any better. When she preps her singing voice, the video glitches and she turns a bright purple while a girl's scream can be heard over her own voice. What this means, I'll discuss later. We cut back to Freddy and to Bonnie, and to Freddy again, as if they're speaking and the pre-show can continue like normal. Foxy once again asks them to stop mucking around. The pre-show doesn't even get to end before the next cut, where only one child remains. A girl on a chair. The pre-show starts again. The audio worse than ever. The animation's slow and choppy. The overall resolution has been completely destroyed. We cut to Freddy, and then to Chica to see she's been stuffed as well. Before Foxy can drop another questionably sounding word, we get a pop-up on screen. The viewing of this tape is prohibited. Discard it immediately. I'm not sure, but in the final frame before the video continues into a black screen, I think we can see Foxy has been stuffed as well, but I'm not sure. It's so low quality, it could feasibly just be the next frame of his animation. Oh, just kidding, because that same frame flashes on screen, and yeah, he's been stuffed. Have fun sleeping tonight. We cut to the kids' room. There's no one left, except the rabbit from earlier, and we can see now he's bright yellow. This is our Spring Bonnie, our William Afton, and he speaks in a voice I have a hard time describing, saying, "What's the matter, Foxy? I thought you wanted an audience." Battington, my friend, old buddy, old pal, who's been giving me intermittent piss breaks, tell me, whose voice is this? Is this yours? Is it text-to-speech? Oh, and all the dead kids reappear with black tears running down their faces. Cut to Foxy staring down the hall, thinking the same thing we're all thinking. What the muck? He's staring into a room ahead, where we see Golden Freddy twitching violently before he just stops. End of the episode. And let me tell you, I use humor when I'm uncomfortable. That's why I made so many jokes in this part of the video compared to most of the others. As for that Chica thing I mentioned earlier, it looks like in this series specifically, William Afton dressed as Spring Bonnie, yes, but he might have also used the Chica animatronic as a kind of weapon to kill the kids. It's weird, but that would seem to be what's implied throughout. Anyway, on to episode 7. Episode 7 is the shortest episode. There are no strings. This one's just showing the puppet peeking in and out of its box over and over, looking like the puppet in the FNAF 6 minigame. Close up and jump scare. Alright, episode 8. Episode 8 is the longest episode in the series, and is a sort of series finale if you want to call it that. It starts as an employee training tape for Fredbear's Family Diner, which chronologically speaking is the first Freddy's location that ever opened, if you want to keep it simple. This is the mascot costume assembly tape, and if you've played the games, you probably have some idea of what kind of costumes this is going to be about. We're introduced to the 2 types of suits, Fredbear and Bonnie Bun. Honestly, I never liked Spring Bonnie as their canon name, but I'm just used to it at this point. Unsurprisingly, this tape explains that these 2 costumes double as animatronics and suits. We're told that there's only to be used as suits when the animatronic itself is under repair. Fredbear gives us this terrifying look, and then we're seeing through his eyes on stage during a performance. Bonnie Bun is jamming away at that keyboard and looks back at us. This reminds me of those cutscenes from FNAF 2. You know the ones. The employee wearing the suit turns to his left and we see a man. A couple zoom-ins, he's wearing a badge and a purple suit. This is our William Afton. We jump to this scene wherein the Fredbear animatronic is crawling through the hall with no outer fur layer. It's damaged, in need of repair, and tries to communicate with Bonnie Bun across the restaurant through these metallic growls that sound like happy birthday. The animatronic sees our cameraman and its face plates open up. I think this might be one of the coolest additions to Battington series. The opening faceplates are a thing the Funtime animatronics have, but seeing them in this context, it makes sense, especially when we see how someone actually puts a spring-lock suit on. The first layer is the fabric costume. The second layer is the fiberglass shell, which is what we just saw crawling on its own. And the third layer is not an endoskeleton, but an exoskeleton. This is basically part of an endoskeleton, but it allows the human wearer to just pop right in. It's also the part of the costume lined with spring locks, which we see a close-up of, and it's gnarly, knowing what eventually happens to Afton. On this one wrist alone, I count 3 rows of 12 sharp locks. The narrator shows us how dangerous these screws can be, and then how to prep them, with a hand crank and several holes in the back of the animatronic. Turning the crank in these holes tightens the screws into place. It's a 2-man job. The narrator begins to explain the process for putting the suit on a human, and it all begins with taking off the gloves and feet. The head is removed, along with the fiberglass shell, and then the fabric costume. The fiberglass casing comes off and the exoskeleton is removed from the main animatronic. To put the costume on, you slide yourself into the exoskeleton and reattach the fiberglass shell, and then the fabric layer, the gloves and feet. Wind the head on the inside so that the fake eyes roll out, and you're set. Oh, and then the tape introduces the concept of spring lock failure with a bloody cartoon bunny. Don't panic, don't move, and call for help. Calm your breathing and have someone help you get the costume off. Then we cut to black. This sort of manual or memo appears, explaining Fredbear's had a jaw upgrade that added hydraulics to allow him to move his heavy lower jaw. We see it in action. Fredbear welcomes people to Fredbear's family diner. How nice. And then we see a kid who turns into a kid with a bloody head. And then this terrifying still of Fredbear with wide eyes and a blood-soaked mouth starts coming towards the camera. The phrase, "I bit someone," floods the screen, and we cut to an office? This looks like a regular FNAF game with many monitors, someone pounding on the door, and even the phone guy, Scott Cawthon's voice. We see Fredbear appear in the room, and then Golden Freddy jump scare, and we are suddenly given a message. 4 tapes hidden inside their empty heads. Freddy ripped apart with a smile. Bonnie dancing in the dark. Chica and her wonderful song. Foxy meets the Happy Man. You were gifted. You found the 5th. We see the Puppets box. It's becoming more clear what the point of these tapes were and who is congratulating us for finding them. They say the viewer's name, or at least the intended viewer, Michael. There's something I want to show you. Before your brother died, something else happened. Something was wrong with the suits. Watch. And we do, as we see an employee suffer a spring lock failure, screaming in pain in the Bonnie Bun costume. A coworker runs to save him, but it's probably already too late. Let me tell you a secret. The same thing happened to your father. It killed him, but only for a while. He's still out there. Do you want to find him? The puppet slides out of its music box. I'll show you. We then see the logo for the new Fazbear's Frights, the horror attraction from FNAF 3. Don't worry about times, dates, locations. You'll know when it happens. We then cut to Battington's Springtrap silhouetted against fire with bright green eyes. There will be a gasoline canister in the back, next to the second exit. Your father will be there in the building with you. He will look different, but you will know it's him. Then we can end this, for good. I could read every single message out. This goes on for a while, praising Michael essentially, but I think you've got the idea by now. The puppet is giving Michael instructions on how to kill Springtrap and explaining to him what happened and the pain brought on to William's victims from the very beginning. The video ends with an empty Fredbear's with motionless animatronics as the music and announcements continue. That's the end. And that's it, for Season 1 at least. Although this series isn't organized in seasons, this is where the Squimpus remakes end. The remaining 2 videos are entirely original, and cover parts of the story Squimpus's did not. As for these remakes, I mean, these are pretty much the definitive way to experience this original story. They're done in such a unique and well-executed way, it's hard for me to recommend the originals over them. However, the originals do have the edge of being a bit more subtle, and obviously there are points where the story diverges. So watch both. That's the best advice I'll ever give you, and that's why I'm not your therapist. We have 2 more short videos to get through, but man, the script is already way longer than my Spectre video. I imagine when I actually get around to recording this, the final video will be like 40 minutes maybe. Episode 9, Late One Night at Fazbear's Frights, begins with a still image of Springtrap, cloaked in the shadow of a nearby doorway. We hold on this shot in a bit of a stare down, which I think is in reference to how in FNAF 3, simply staring at Springtrap when he's at your door is actually an effective way to survive. As the video progresses, however, we see a face fade in on the far right side, the face of a screaming child. We get a little jump scare from this kid before moving on to the next part of the video, which has someone walking through the Fazbear Fright's attraction. We see a deactivated Springtrap behind a wire fence. When the button is pushed, Springtrap comes to life for a moment and giggles about how he's gonna stuff you into his suit, and deactivates once more. This is a really solid take on what Fazbear Frights would have actually been like had it opened up after FNAF 3. The only thing I question is how it would become common knowledge that the killer wore a Bonnie Bun costume, but it's not common knowledge that he's still wearing it. The lights flicker and suddenly Springtrap is gone. We hear the droning from FNAF 3 that means he's close, and the door at the back of his attraction swings open. The Phantom puppet is staring at us, and suddenly this right here has me so goddamn pumped. I think Battington's Springtrap is my favorite fan interpretation of the character, especially with how he's handled in this video. While regular Springtrap is threatening, yes, sometimes he seems more goofy than anything else. But this Springtrap never feels like that. He always feels like an absolute monster. This video, oh my god, this video. And that brings us to our most recent episode. Episode 10, Motion Detected in Cam 4. Although I and many others probably thought the next episode would be FNAF 3 themed, this one's actually FNAF 2, introducing us to Battington's toy Bonnie. By the way, shortly after this video was posted, Battington was hacked and had to really fight to get his channel back, so please go support him. I can't imagine what kind of trouble and stress this man has gone through over this stuff. The video begins in a darkened camera 4 from FNAF 2. We can hear what sounds like giggling and movement coming from within, followed by animatronic footsteps coming closer. The door opens to the room and the light switches on, and we watch Toy Bonnie enter and begin investigating. We were told in FNAF 2 that the animatronics are drawn to sound, so it's as if Toy Bonnie was lured here, even if there aren't any actual children. Toy Bonnie does some teleporting around the room, looking for what could have made those noises, and eventually gets into a stare down with the camera. He draws closer, and we actually see the lights in his eyes turn on. He disappears and the lights in the actual room turn on. It's something completely alien to myself, and I imagine many others, but this is what the room would look like when it's open. The lights shut back off suddenly, and we see the silhouette of a rabbit's head come over the camera and block everything in frame. But when the light from the camera flips on, it's Afton's face from earlier. We switch to a static still of Toy Bonnie's face, and by the way, I love this model. Like, a lot more than Vintage Bonnie. I haven't really gone into the design differences between this series and the main one, but in this case, I actually preferred Toy Bonnie to the original, and Vintage Bonnie is not my favorite. We begin to hear a song in a robotic voice. He found a way inside, he's hiding in the shadows. It's clear what Toy Bonnie means. He's describing how William Afton found a way inside by wearing the Bonnie Bun costume and blending in with the other animatronics. He's hiding in the shadows, like we saw earlier. The animatronics know something's wrong, but they can't find him. And that is the final episode, for now. I don't think Battington is exactly stopping these videos, but in his most recent upload he made it clear that he wants to focus on his other content, which I should mention is still pretty damn fire. I covered his FNAF series because it was the most relevant to my channel, and the shortest of his series. If I did Harmony and Horror, I'd still be talking about the Ice Cream Man. Basically, if Battington does decide to make more FNAF VHS videos, then I'll be right there watching and probably taking notes. But unfortunately, this is all I've got to talk about this time. If you enjoy this series or Squimpus's, both are going to be linked down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video covering it. This probably won't be the last time I cover any of these series, so subscribe and drop a like if you've enjoyed. That's all out of me. I'm DMuted. Peace.